Yes, we had 4 tries to 0. 1 out of 4 conversions, played 0 out of 0. 75% completion, played 79 for the Knights. 31 out of 41 sets, played 31 out of 39. Sharks had 650 plus running meters and 130 plus post contact meters. 5 line breaks to 1. 45 tackle busts, played 19. 14 offloads to 5. 1 forced dropout by Newcastle. 0 40-20s. 343 tackles made by the Sharks, played 393. 1 ruck infringement against Newcastle, 1 inside the 10 against Newcastle. 8 penalties conceded to 6. 13 errors by the Sharks, 9 by the Knights. Each team had somebody sent to the sin bin. Nakora made 42 tackles, Randall with 57, Mulatano with 239 running meters, and Gagai with 124. Talakai missed 3 tackles, made 10. Gagai missed 7 and missed 7 and made 29. And Dominic Young missed 4 and made 8.
Our first crack at this part?
Yeah, rightio. I thought the first 20 minutes was pretty competitive. Newcastle were probably on top for 10 minutes of that first 20. And it was sort of going back and forth there until old mate got sent to the sin bin. So Tolman scored that first try. And then it was just all one-way traffic for the Sharks for the next, 50 to 60 minutes of this game. I thought the Knights were pretty desperate in defence, and they worked hard to make sure that they didn't get beaten by a lot larger margin. The fact that the Sharks made a couple of errors here and there at the very end of their plays probably helped them not getting beaten by a lot more. But I thought the Sharks were pretty convincing, and they probably should have won by closer to 30 than what they did with the 18 points. But at the end of the game, it was pretty convincing shutout. The Knights bench offered next to nothing, as did Ponga. Was probably the worst player on the field. I think he had about 6 touches and dropped the ball 3 times. One of them leading directly to Sharks' try. Randall and Mann did some really good work, and their halves were okay, as was their starting pack, but they got monstered by the Sharks starting pack. McGuinness and Tolman put in some good work when they came back off the bench, but the Sharks backline was pretty much dominant in every position against the Knights. And as I said, I probably thought they deserved to win by a couple more tries than what they did.
Yeah, it's a game that actually, when I look back on it, the scoreline's surprising because it felt like a 30-0 game rather than an 18-0 game. Yeah. Watching it live, Gump, your thoughts?
Yeah, the score flattered the Knights. I thought the Sharks were really good. They were controlled. They didn't panic or rush like teams had the week before. They were patient. They've got it right at the moment by they're getting early ball to players that need early ball. I said it early, Matt Moylan's getting the ball early to someone like Talakai. I'm not surprised Gagai missed 7 and Young missed 6. They were probably all on Talakai, and there was 45 tackle busts, probably 25 of them by Talakai on that side of the field. So once, it might not have even been a plan, but once they've given him early ball twice and they couldn't handle him, well, that's plan A. And Absolutely. You stick with plan A in any game. As soon as it works a couple of times, then you keep going to the well, and it kept working for them. Like, he was outstanding. So
he was
we talked about, we talked at length about the Cronulla forward pack.
And
you've answered one question there, because why would you move him from the centres?
Well, that's what I mean. We were talking about the makeup of the Sharks team last week and who'd fit where and how they'd all fit. So I think that answered a big question in terms of, look, he's got to start, whether he starts in the back row or the centres, but he's got to start. He's that X-factor player out wide for them that you probably need to be a top 4 team. If he continues to play like that, then you need someone like that on an edge that's going to do some damage. So he may be getting a clearer picture of who might be who in the zoo in terms of that moving forward.
And it wasn't Mark. It was on probably the form centre of the comp until then.
17 tackle busts, Gumpy.
Yeah. So there you go. So 45 tackle busts for the team. He had 17. So he's got, close to half of them, one bloke.
Yeah.
So, I'm just watching it here on 360 in the background, and he's palming blokes off at the moment.
And Mulatano, I'm pretty sure, was on his outside, who had 6 as well. So
yeah, in terms of that. So look, the Knights weren't bad; they were okay. but I think that they're in that echelon of teams there that will find it very hard to score points. Like, I don't see too many points in them in games. And look, if the points aren't coming from Ponga, then I don't know where they're coming from. And I think the weekend illustrated that he had a poor game. And look, they didn't really look like scoring a try, to be honest, in all honesty, in that game. So, yeah, the score flattered the Knights. They weren't bad like some of the other teams, but the Sharks were very good.
I have to agree with Gump wholeheartedly in the sense that Newcastle weren't actually that bad. And all I've really seen concerning this game since is how bad Newcastle were, and obviously Ponga and whatever. But I thought the main thing we can attribute to this outcome was Cronulla were clinical for about 70 minutes on both attack and defense. And we don't see that in a lot of games. And they looked like a top 4 team. There aren't that many sides who can be clinical and play that way and just absolutely dominate a team for that long. Penrith's one of them. Melbourne can as well. So it's just really interesting to see that from Cronulla. That's the main thing I took away. You touched on Moylan before, obviously getting Talakai early ball, but I still thought he was good. The service he was giving him, I thought Moylan did have a good game. And that's the thing as well. There are people saying, well, Hines was a bit off or he wasn't as good. He just wasn't getting as much ball because Talakai was the hot hand. So you want to be getting the right player on the right side to get the ball to him. I think that's simply what it was. And Talakai obviously was, I'd say we'd probably all give him 3 points this week. He was just the main man. He looked like David Fafita. So maybe David Fafita does need to move to the centres, but I know it was sort of an interesting point we brought up on Wednesday that he'd been named in the centres, but so far it's worked out, and you'd nearly not, well, you wouldn't really move him, would you? Because
you couldn't. Yeah. You can't.
But I did mention last week that I really had no concerns about him being there, except for being up against somebody who gets early ball and gets around him with footwork. But it didn't look like it was going to happen on the weekend. And you got a couple of blokes on either side that can help as well in that kind of situation. So,
well, he plays like that for another week. I might shave the mo and go full Talakai as well and see how we go. But it's 3-2-1s, Barn. I don't have a lot to say. You guys have summed up pretty well. Good to see your man Mulitano. Again, good enough service, and he does the job.
He's a fantastic player. Finish as well as just about any winger in the comp. He's big enough and strong enough, so if you give him time and space, he'll definitely score tries. And he doesn't have a lot of errors in him. He has the odd game here and there, but he's a pretty solid player. I think. Talakai has to get 3 points. I don't think there's anyone in NRL that would not have given him 3 points in this game. And I had Mulitano and Nakora.
He didn't get 3 points for this game, too.
He might have. Ask Nathan Imarsh. But Mulitano I had for 2 and Nakora for 1, but I'd be happy to switch those 2 around. Either way, it doesn't really matter.
I'm pretty happy with that. Yep. What do you blokes think?
Yeah, I'd only throw Moylan in, but I'm happy with that as well. Moylan
was good.
Moylan was good, but the others were probably better than him. So